It's another episode of the Better Learning Podcast. I am joined with John Gamba today, where I've been connected. What I love about doing the podcast is I get to talk to people that are change makers, that are approaching things from education in different perspectives. And John is one of those people who has some really cool experience, but also this passion towards education. And I had a brief conversation. I'm like, we need to talk on the podcast. So, John, welcome to the show.
Hey, it's great to be here. I love the work you're doing.
So one of the things that just really is a great place to start is hearing what school was like for you. Do you mind going back that far of like what was school like for you when you were going
Not
through
at all.
school?
In fact, I was sharing some stories earlier when I am doing some podcasts myself and working with some of my mentees, which I do a lot of mentorship of education entrepreneurs. We talk about our why, we talk about our origin stories, and it's always something that's coming out of their educational experience that drives them to trying to transform education as we know it. And just like me, I kind of had the triple threat. I had dyslexia, I stuttered, and I had ADHD, all of which I kind of learned about on my own educational journey as I went along and had to deal with in different ways. I'm a 54-year-old white male now. So the way that we looked at IEPs and we looked at students with disabilities, gifted and talented, was a lot different back then. But boy, was my educational journey different. When I was reversing letters and struggled with reading comprehension and had a speech pathologist, little did I know I would speak for a living later on in my life because I struggled so much. So that's how school was for me. I was a visual learner. It was very, very tough to concentrate and to stay focused in school. But later on in life, I like to think back on that and say that was actually an asset. It kind of brought out creativity and innovative thinking and entrepreneurial mindset, all of which I've leveraged now later on in my career as an entrepreneur myself, and now in my role as entrepreneur in residence at Penn GSE.
Well, it's funny you say that because I learned we have a one of our kids that went through that dyslexia and it allowed us to get a window kind of that research. I'm like, oh wait, I think I was that way too. But when you really started digging into dyslexia, the thing that always stood out to me is like the path for the kids that are identified in here, it usually goes one or two ways. It could either go towards that entrepreneurial side of things, or the other pathway is prison. Like there
Yeah.
were those were like the two like most likely scenarios that came from that. And obviously I'm more on the entrepreneurial side of things. So I'm like, oh, I know a lot of people who have a similar story to what you have, John, of going that direction. And when we started getting into the intervention for him, I'm like, man, I don't want to take away his superpower. I'm like,
Right.
if we fix this, does it actually like hurt his ability to build those other skills that are then required to
Yeah,
do
there's a
that? So
there's a lot of research in that area, and we're doing a lot of it at Penn GSE as it relates to, neutralizing the malady, if you will, without tamping down some of the benefits that come out of learning differently, as I like to say. And
yeah,
so for me, it was an interesting journey, my
yeah.
educational journey, and I eventually got to the University of Pennsylvania and majored in American history. Struggled all along, but with a lot of hard work, passion, and grit, I was able to get through that, and later started a career in entrepreneurship, and now found my way back to Penn, where I'm the entrepreneur in residence, which is great.
Very cool. What was that? So once you finished up as an undergrad for UPenn, like what was that path to get into entrepreneurship? Did you know right away, or did you did you go through a different exploration
No,
first?
I did not know right away. In fact, when I graduated from Penn, I thought I was going to be a litigating public defender. I really thought I was going to be
Really?
an advocate for the law. I thought I was going to go to law school. And what happened was I got an internship at a public defender's office and worked for a really great public defender, Gretchen Franklin, Harvard Law School, and kind of got a taste of what it would be like to be a pro bono litigating attorney, and quickly discovered that that's not what I wanted to do in my career. I kind of started thinking about wanting the lawyers to work for me. And so while that was an incredible experience and really got to see some of the great parts of the law, but also some of the not so good parts. I was like, let me dip my toe in the water with business. My father was a business person. My mom grew up watching my grandfather as an entrepreneur. One thing led to another, and in the late '90s, I started an ed tech incubator built out off of the model of Bill Gross and his Idea Lab, and so just a really great transformative moment for me. So early 20s, late 20s, kind of getting my foot in the water in business. I was at KPMG doing strategy consulting, had a great partner who kind of trained me on the business basics. And then something called me late in the late 90s where I wanted to have my own business and wanted to help incubate new startups in the education space.
Yeah, cool. So what were some of the things that you're working on earlier in your career then in that startup ed tech space?
Yeah, some of the first competency-based math programs, some game-based e-learning. But my business partner at the time, when I was working and looking at some business plans, came to me on a fateful day and kind of slammed the backpack memo from his kindergarten son's back to school night on my desk and said, "I can't believe this happened." I said, "Bennett, what happened?" And he said, "I missed back to school night because the backpack memo had an apple juice stain on the date and time. So I went last night and it was actually 2 nights ago. And I'm embarrassed by that. I missed my son's back to school night. He's only going to be a kindergartner once in his life. And I missed it. And we're going to change the way we communicate with parents." It's like, well, there's already some auto dialers and some polling and surveying software out. He said, "Yeah, but nobody's doing it specifically for schools." And wouldn't you know it, mortgaging your home and borrowing money. And I actually had my family come in and invest a little bit of money. We created PACE, the Partnership for Academic and Community Excellence, the first school-to-home communications network that allowed a principal to record a personalized voice message and send that out to a parent in a moment's notice. So back in 1999, that was one of the first school-specific school-to-home communications network that connected parents that connected principals and superintendents to parents and allowed them to make calls in a moment's notice.
What was the biggest challenge of getting that product out to the market?
So it was not having any domain expertise and not understanding at all how schools operate. So the first thing that I had to do was surround myself with people who are smarter than me. Never forget it. Brought in Tom Motter from Future Kids, who said, "How are you trying to sell this?" And I was like, email marketing, direct mail. It's like, man, they have the biggest circular files out there. You're not going to be able to do it that way. You have to have relationships. So from Tom, I really learned the idea of having a great product doesn't always lead to product market fit, doesn't always lead to being able to sell the product in the considering the glacial pace by which K-12 moved. The second area was the technology that was built. I needed to really learn about personally identifiable information and COPPA compliance and FERPA compliance, and thinking about the things that would allow me to develop a technology platform that would actually work inside of school environment, that got into interoperability and making sure that we were interoperable with student information systems. And Josh Roth came in, my CTO, and really helped me create an end-to-end full stack platform that would work within school environments. And then I think the legal ramifications. Gigi Goodling came in and said, "Let me see your contract." She's like, "How do you think you're going to be able to use this kind of contract and sell a great product like this without having things that would need to be incorporated into a privacy statement or a terms of use agreement that would actually work within school systems?" Once I figured that out, and it was a long time and a lot of mistakes made, we were able to, get the product stood up, sell a few contracts, a lot of incredible stories there, get it sponsored by some local community partners. But eventually we figured it out, and we had a major exit in 2008 where we sold the business to Blackboard in an all-cash transaction.
That is awesome. I mean, awesome story to hear through that. Because I mean, you were kind of in that, like right in that seat of like all the tech boom, all the .com, all that ed tech basically was like starting, was
Yeah,
really coming
yeah.
about right in
Blackboard
that
in
area.
1998, I think. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Mike
So
Moe came out from GSV with his Confluence of Catalysts, the American Revolution 2.0, where he talked about these confluence of catalysts that were coming together to make ed tech what it really has emerged to be right now. The low
Yeah.
cost of computing, how philanthropists like Gates and CZI and some of the bigger philanthropists were starting to actually fund new business ideas, and a whole network of purpose-driven, entrepreneurially minded uh, uh, practitioners from Teach for America and elsewhere thinking that they could get into the education space and become entrepreneurs. That confluence kind of created this spark of innovation, and here we are today.
Yeah. So when you had that exit, did you stay on board, or was that part of the plan
Yeah, so
was
we
you?
sold the company twice. The first one in 2004 to a private equity group in New York, and then I stayed on as the co-founder and president. And right before our final exit, I was kind of in the process of moving on and doing my own thing, but I was involved in both exits, and it was definitely life-changing for me.
Yeah. So at what point did you join with UPenn?
So from 2008 until 2018, 2019, those 10 years, I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Actually, became an Ironman triathlete. So I took some
Nice.
time off, started to take care of myself, and still had that bug that I wanted to compete and go after things. But I started getting into fitness and had a lot of free time based on that exit, and kind of got my head straight, invested in a couple of companies, got involved in some real estate technology, and got involved in some fintech, and just kind of woke up to the fact that that's not really what I want to do. Really wanted to make a difference in the education space. My father was a school board chairperson. My mom was a community college professor. My sister was a Montessori teacher. The Gambas were all, I guess we have education in our genes, and I wanted to come back. And I got the call from Penn that they were looking for their first entrepreneur in residence, and I jumped at it.
Very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's like one of the coolest titles out there.
Yeah.
I I just I feel like there's some universities that have that, and I'm like, oh, like if there's a title that I would want at some point in my life, that sounds really cool.
Yeah, I
Um,
loved it. And I
yeah,
think Stanford had an entrepreneur in residence in their graduate school of education right around the time that I joined Penn. So both of us kind of came on with that title. And I have to say, when I first came into Penn GSE with that title, there were a couple of warnings like, the commercialization of education, and we're really into the state of public and free education. And who's this entrepreneur in residence guy? This fast talking, like they call me sometimes, the hand waving Italian coming in here. And I got to say, the moment that I went into an inquiry mindset and did a listening tour with researchers and faculty members at Penn GSE, they were like, "Where have you been? We love the idea of practical applications for the research that we're doing." And sort of the sparks flew and the magic happened. And here I am, 5.5 years later.
yeah. So talk through like what are the things that you were first in, because it was a newly created position, right?
Yeah.
So you're coming in trying to understand the whole university structure to it. Like what was the first charge that they ever gave you, or that you were saying this is what I want to do?
Create a model, create an actual a plan and model around what an entrepreneur in residence would do, leveraging the signature program that Catalyst at Penn GSE, my center, my innovation center, was putting forth, and that was the Milken Penn GSE Education Business Plan competition. It's like, wow. The first thing that I really did was, what can I take advantage of, or what can other entrepreneurs take advantage of here that I didn't have access to? And it was this idea of research to practice. And that is, how can I bring entrepreneurs and connect them into our research infrastructure so that they can leverage foundational research that they may not have had access to in their general capacity as an entrepreneur? And then second, what is the evaluative model, or what are you trying to measure as an outcome? And how can these researchers and faculty members help with that evaluation? Because we know if you can measure it, you tend to become more investable, sustainable, and scalable over time. So I immediately came in and created this model for entrepreneur in residence hours, and a model for how we could connect entrepreneurs that were coming through our Milken competition into our research infrastructure to deliver what we consider now our secret sauce, which is this idea of research to practice.
So you and I have been connected and had most of our conversations around like the K-12 space in particular, but really your view is much broader than that.
Yeah.
You are looking at ways to foster entrepreneurship and ways to do it really across every industry.
Yeah, well, in my specific space, it's pre-K to career learning. So
Okay.
it is education focused within Penn's Graduate School of Education, but it's very interdisciplinary. I speak, lecture, and work with students and faculty members in Wharton, the School of Nursing, School of Engineering, and that cross-discipline element and interdisciplinary focus across the University of Pennsylvania is critically important. But my specific role is as entrepreneur in residence in Penn's Graduate School of Education. Well, one of the misnomers, one of the things I have to correct is that, like, oh, you just work with Penn students or Penn GSE students. And no, our programming is open to the world. For instance, we've supported now 1,500 global edtech entrepreneurs from over 50 countries, 6 continents, given away $2 million in non-dilutive capital through the generosity of our sponsors. And those companies have gone on to raise $200 million in follow-on capital. So super exciting. The impact is there. We're always looking to get better by applying these principles that we've collectively learned as entrepreneurs ourselves.
Yeah, I love it. It's one of those things where, yeah, if there's ways that the universe, like to me, this is where the university system really can help
Yeah.
push everything forward. I live out in Arizona now, so I've been connecting more and more with ASU, and like they're doing a lot of things that are really interesting in the K-12 space. What are the things like when you're looking at, because of this unique experience that you have, what are the things that if you're like, man, K-12 is just stuck on this, or are there certain things that you're looking at of saying like, man, we could really help uh the landscape of education for this country? What are the things that you're seeing from the seat that you're in?
Yeah. So we always look at the seminal challenges in education. I would say the literacy crisis is something we're looking very closely at right now. 70% of our kids can't read at grade level. That's a crisis. That's a pandemic in and of itself. So we're looking at the science of reading. We're looking at learning engineering. We're looking at decodables. We're looking at a lot of things that we can do to apply and improve teacher training to get our kiddos to be able to read and comprehend at the same time. We can go on a litany of who's to blame and why is this crisis. I like to just focus on what we can do to address it and fix it with metrics. If you can't measure it, it's not worth doing. So I'd say literacy is an area that we're super focused on. Another area that we're looking at is the Great Resignation and teacher well-being and teacher resilience. We're working on what is it going to take to LeBron James, the teaching vocation. Too long we look at LeBron James. Why aren't we looking at teachers the way we look at professional athletes? Because they have so much more influence or so much more impact on the future generation than, say, a professional athlete or an entertainer. So we're looking at a lot of products, services, entrepreneurs, and research that goes into what is it going to take to create a more resilient K-12, pre-K-12 to higher ed workforce. And improve the teaching profession with next generation applications to improve it. So that's an area we're looking at. Of course, we're looking at the mental health crisis. We're looking at this notion of stress and anxiety, counseling, and what we can do to support the mental well-being of our students and teachers, because we see that that's a crisis right now. Really big fan of Jonathan Haidt's work. And his latest book on the anxiety
Yeah, the
generation
anxiety generation. Yeah.
and
Yep.
and what this means in terms of students getting the help they need when they need it, but also anticipating what are the signals before we actually have to provide clinical support. So a lot of work in MTSS, tiers of multi-systems and multi-tiers and systems of support, level 1, tier 1 through 3 interventions, and this whole idea of a continuum of assessing where students are with regard to mental health, and how to how to take advantage of a bridge to get them the help they need in the event that they actually need clinical treatment.
Yeah. I mean, that's a huge one right there. I mean, we could have a whole conversation
For sure.
just around that. I was even thinking of it this morning of like, man, Snapchat. Oh, like
Right?
it like
Absolutely.
that
TikTok,
alone.
Snapchat, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I
Cell
mean,
phones in the schools, and distractions and
yeah.
ADHD and influencers. Then no, you don't even you have to pull in the whole idea of red versus blue states. We spend all this money on math and STEM and literacy, but why aren't we spending money on teaching a student um, to know what to do if they have a certain feeling or they have a certain emotion? That's anger, that's hunger, that's resentment. What do we do to teach them self-regulation or self-reliance, or ways to control impulses, delayed gratification? These are skills that we should be teaching as much as we're teaching math, English, social studies, in my opinion.
Yeah. And I look at it, I'm like, technology can, in my mind, and you probably have a better and more well thought out way of viewing it, but I always look at it, I'm like, there's technology for like in two different buckets. There's technology that says, oh, these are existing things that we do, and technology is going to help us do it better. And then there's the technology like this changes things. Like this is going to be the future around that. And um, the hot topic in that second bucket is obviously like AI, VR, things like that. Do you get involved or exposed in any of those aspects that you're looking at?
Absolutely. That's every other conversation I have is
Yeah.
looking at AI through an asset lens or a deficit lens. So the asset lens is it is a game-changing technology that can save teachers time while impacting student success in an incredibly transformative way. And then there's the deficit lens, which is cheating, plagiarism, and the ethical considerations of nefarious use of data. And we have to navigate through how are we going to have a code of ethics protecting the data, protecting the security of the data, while taking advantage of the benefits or the assets that can be delivered as a result of bringing AI, into the classrooms and into school communities, to impart the change that we know that it can impart. But I'll share a story on the tremendous impact that you've alluded to. I was given a lecture at the Wharton School's Leadership in the Business World. And, we were talking and level setting on what is entrepreneurship, literally what is the definition. And these really slick students are raising their hands and they're giving kind of textbook definitions, and they're all right in one way or another. And I let them go. I let them answer the question, and I responded. And I said, let me tell you what I think the definition of entrepreneurship is. You ready? I said, I'm ready. I said, how many of you use ChatGPT? And everybody raised their hand. 100% of them. How many of you use it to cheat? And then I put their hands on. I said, hey, wait a second. We have cameras here. What are you talking about? I said, in giving this lecture 12, 18 months ago, nobody raised their hand. And now 100% of you have raised your hand. That's 100% adoption of a technology in 12 to 18 months. And I
Right.
said, that's my definition of entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is innovation happening at the speed of imagination, leveraging research, evaluation, and iterative design. And then I take them through what is research? What is evaluation? If you can't measure it, you shouldn't do it. What's an OKR? An objective and key result. And what is iterative design? What does it mean to co-construct and co-design? And I share stories in each of those elements for them to really get entrepreneurship. But man, think about that. 100% adoption of a technology in a learning space by the smartest kids who are out there
Right.
in 12 months. I mean, that's just ungodly.
Yeah, it is. So I think it's even interesting because there's gonna be a point where we even shift that conversation where it's not who's using it to cheat. Like there is a moment be like, no, this is now a tool. It's not about cheating anymore.
Right.
And I know that's a hard conversation. I mean, know you mentioned it a little bit before too, of like where is that divide? Like we could either spend all this time and all these resources trying to figure out how to like yeah, how to
And how about the idea we
eliminate.
talk, yeah, how the idea of biases, cultural biases, ethnic biases that are embedded in AI, and how scary that can be, all the way to hallucinations. And how do you really get through the challenges related to plagiarism and cheating, and not let this thing get out of control? That's another conversation for the day, but I really think that if you can demystify and think about AI and machine learning through the lens of what it is and what it is not, we can get to the answers of how we can apply it and use it in meaningful
Yeah.
ways, given the situation and current state of where we are in the field of education.
Yeah. With all that you're working on and you're exposed to, what are you most excited about?
I think I'm most excited about finally thinking about competency-based education models that are more holistic. I'm really excited about thinking about how to creatively incorporate social emotional learning or trauma-informed practices or restorative practices into your common core aligned lesson plan or your common core aligned technology. I'm also really excited about the research that we've done answering the question, if there's been 1,000 ed tech products out there, 950 of them have failed or only done marginally well, and 50 have become unicorns or billion-dollar companies. Why? What is it about a certain kind of ed tech product or education innovation that stands out and makes it really different? I'm really fascinated on looking at those models, determining what is efficacy or what is an evidence-based model, and what can we do to incorporate those lessons learned in new products that are being developed now. And what the research has shown, fascinating to me, is three things for the Quizlets or the Poptropicas or the Nuzellas or the Nearpods. One is that they're super engaging, where we live in a Fortnite and a Minecraft world. And these student-facing solutions have to be super engaging for these students. Points, rewards, gamification, great UI, great UX. Second is the pedagogical alignment, which is what I talked about, crosswalking and making sure that whatever you're using in the classroom actually crosswalks to an outcome that leads to success on formative and summative assessments. If it's just engaging but not pedagogically aligned and not delivering an outcome, it's not going to work, or it's going to be one of those 950 that does okay, but not really game changing. And the third thing is the ease of adoption, interoperability, good PD, so a teacher knows how to use it, really thinking about how a product or service aligns to an instructional episode. And what we found is if the ventures go 3 for 3, not 1 for 3, not 2 for 3, but 3 for 3, super engaging, pedagogically aligned, easy to adopt, it's got a great chance of being successful. And I'm fascinated on building on that research and using those models in ed tech design and development.
I love that you're looking into that. That would be super fascinating to see those key elements, those things
Yeah.
that are overlapping and those that adoption of it. That
You know
is
what
really
I do
cool.
is I survey them. I actually now ask the ed tech entrepreneurs who will stay with me through the Entrepreneur in Residence program. I ask them to do a self-assessment in those three areas. How are you doing, and what can we do to build certain things? There's a great seminal white paper out there, co-authored by Caitlin Donnelly of Avalanche Venture. Shout out to her. Forward of this article written by who was it? I think Ted Smith, Undersecretary of Education. It's called Alive in the Swamp, and it talks about those elements that make for a compelling, motivational, engaging education technology product.
Since you've gotten the exposure of kind of like the incubator side, and I don't know if that's a right way to explain it, but you're seeing like these ideas being formed and like that real early research and exploration into it. How do you usually handle them? Are you obviously you don't want to like when you see bad ones or you think ones that you're like that's not going anywhere. Are, are you doing more probing? Are you trying to like send them in a direction? Like I would just love to hear kind of the experience of like, are there certain things that do help kind of foster that growth, knowing that, startup world is, 1 out of 100 are going to really hit it big.
Yeah. First of all, I warn them that whatever they tell me, there's never been an idea, a concept, a business, an MVP that I haven't fallen in love with. So I give them forewarning because they go
Okay.
at it and they show me something. I'm like, man, is that cool?
Yeah.
But so I tend to look at
So you're on the optimistic side of things.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I'm an
Yeah.
entrepreneur who died 9 lives in my entrepreneurial journey before I got it right.
Yeah.
So that being said, there's three things that we really work on inside of an entrepreneur residence session or a mentoring session. And we start with a half hour, but it's never one and done. It's always to be continued. And those three things are: first, we look at the business fundamentals. We really are big believers in the lean canvas, Eric Ries, and the
Yep.
lean startup model. And we work on problem solution, TAM, SAM, SOM, go-to-market strategies, key assumptions, and we stay there if an entrepreneur needs that work. But I get a lot of entrepreneurs like, no, 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 I've raised my angel capital or seed capital. I have an MVP. I'm actually selling in schools. I need to go to that next level. I got it. My lean canvas is done. I've even raised some capital. Well, that's when we move into that what I named, which was the research to practice. Then we start
Yeah.
thinking about logic models, and we thought to start thinking about theory of action, theory of change. What is the evaluative model by which you're measuring impact? And that doesn't always have to be, objective or quantitative. It can be qualitative measures. So we really look at that. And then finally, after we get through a sort of this research to practice and making sure that the logic model is strong, we go into our third component, which is very popular, and that's just typical matchmaking. Startups need advice. They need strategic advisors. They need to know where to turn to get support in fractional CFO services or get a CTO or how to outsource to a capable developer, designer or developer, or the legal support to structure the venture. So we do a lot of matchmaking into sales and marketing networks and into legal affairs networks, HR, team building, recruiting. But really, it's holistically looking at the business fundamentals, the research to practice, logic modeling, and then your typical matchmaking, which gets us
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. So your experience and the research of you kind of dig in there, there's always the question, are you betting on the founder? Or are you betting on the product? What do you think?
Well,
How
I'll
would you
tell you
answer
this.
that?
I would answer that team and founder is critically important, but it's the kind of team and the kind of founders. I like to say that I really believe in the founder who demonstrates the paradox of humility and will. And that means you get a lot of founders who have a lot of humility. They're coachable. They need to learn, but they are not ready to run through walls to be successful. And I certainly have founders who are ready to run through walls to be successful, but they're not ready to be coachable. So when I sit down and I see that paradox in a founder who has both, I know I'm onto something with them that could be truly magical. So I think founders, team dynamics are critically important. I do think products that are developed through that lens of engagement, pedagogical alignment, and easy to adopt is critically important. And I think finally, beyond just that paradox of humility and will, that insistence to co-create and co-construct in this world where we have the low cost of computing, we know that that products can be adapted, pivoted, in real time if you're going through test kitchens and bringing it into environments where students and teachers are actually playing with the product and providing insights and advice on how it can develop and evolve over time.
Have you had a chance to really dig into the Apple Vision Pro?
Yeah.
What are your thoughts? Are you seeing
I think it's got there's gonna be some time that that needs to go into
yeah.
how it's going to be used and the utility and the applications. I think the jury's still out.
Yeah. It's one that I'm watching. It's the one where I feel like if the apps are developed, and so that's why I'm curious, because it's gonna be the apps
Right.
that win or not. It's probably the first real product that I feel like schools are going to trust.
Yeah, well,
Um,
they start with the trust capital of the brand, right? So
yeah,
that I think that's important. There's no doubt, and the research shows that experiential learning is the wave of the future. And if you go back to the models of what's led to some unicorns, that experiential or that engagement element is critically important. We don't want to teach math, right? We want to do math, and the more that you can, put on a headset and go into a virtual environment and actually experience and get into a real world problem solving mode, I like their chances as well.
yeah. I've just been. I'm like, if this is the worst that the technology will ever be, this is amazing. Like, it
Right.
is amazing technology.
Questions
It's
are going to
so
be cost.
yeah, the cost. If they get the cost down, they get the apps right. There's enough
Yeah.
apps, and how you manage that. But yeah, that's the one that I'm like this. If there's a game changer, obviously there's all the AI stuff that's like constantly going on right now.
It's
But
incredible.
yeah, well, awesome. Anything I didn't ask you that I should be asking you about?
I don't think so. This was really rich. We kind of got into a lot of,
Yeah, we
it was
did.
very conversational. I appreciate that. Anybody who wants to get in touch with me, Catalyst at Penn GSE, John Gamba, love to have an EIR session, talk to you about a new idea. I will fall in love with it, that's for sure. But we'll take you through our model and really see what we can do to support in an intentional way.
That's great. I appreciate it. Yeah, we'll have your information in the show notes too, and we appreciate the support you've had for the podcast. We've had the podcast tied in with your program too
Yeah.
to just
And
continue
it's
to.
tagged and it's very popular. So in our Catapult Virtual Accelerator, we now have 1,000 members, and the tags and the opens and the way people are interacting is really there, and we appreciate that very much. We're only as
Yeah,
good as the content and the experts that we have embedded.
yeah. Well, thank you. We appreciate it. And to the listeners, if you did not subscribe, just hit it whether you're watching on YouTube, whatever podcast platform, and the hub for us is betterlearningpodcast.com. We honestly, this is where we get all our ideas for our shows. It's the listeners, the people in these communities that just have a passion to improving education. So thank you for the people that have been doing that. And if you have any other ideas, whether you'd want to be a guest or have some recommendations, please do that at betterlearningpodcast.com. John, great talking to you.
It's great talking to you. Keep up the great work, and anything we can do to support.
The views and opinions expressed on the Better Learning Podcast are those of myself as an individual and my guests, and do not necessarily represent the organizations that we work for, the Association for Learning Environments, K-12, Education Leaders Organization, or Second Class Foundation.